Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session on the green industrial landscape. As Chris says, I'm Gemma Casey, editor of Business News Wales, and I'm really pleased to be hosting this first breakout session of Wales Tech Week. So over the next half an hour, we are going to be exploring how geopolitics and the climate crisis are fueling a new industrial revolution, one which is likely to be powered by clean energy, circular manufacturing, and data-driven efficiency. But I'm keen for us to dig beneath the surface and discuss what this means for business and the opportunities as well as the challenges that it is likely to bring. And joining me to discuss this are Dr. Bettina Bockelmann-Evans. Bettina is Innovation Lead with CCR Energy, and Steve Edwards, Director of Energy Policy and Regulation at KPMG. Thank you both so much for joining me. First of all, I'm going to come to each of you and ask you to tell us a little bit about your background and the role you're now in. So Bettina, I'll start with you.
Thanks very much. I lead on innovation at CCR Energy, which is a relatively new company, 2 years or 2.5 years now. We are tasked by Cardiff Capital Region with the demolition, remediation and planning of what's happening next with the Aberthaw site, the former coal power station. My background is I was an academic in School of Engineering at Cardiff University for 20 years, so I've got a good understanding, I think, of innovation from that point of view. Which I hope now to bring to the public sector and private sector, and developing those triple helix opportunities that can bring a lot of, I think, development for this region.
Thank you, Bettina. And I know there are some really exciting things going on at Aberthaw, which we'll talk about during the course of the panel. Thank you. Steve, tell us a little bit about your background and your fairly new role, I think.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Steve Edwards. So I've been in energy and ports for around 30 years. So I spent over 20 years as Director of Regulation and Commercial at Wales and West Utilities, running gas distribution network. What was interesting about that is around 2012, I think net zero was really getting talked about, so the key issue from about 2012 even to now is the role of gas and gas networks through the energy transition and beyond. I then moved to the Port of Milford Haven in 2020, spent 4 years there, 4 amazing years. We started to work with the Crown Estate and developers in terms of the offshore wind opportunity in the Celtic Sea, and also the Freeport process. So played quite a big role in the Celtic Freeport process, which ABP Port Talbot, Port of Milford Haven, Pembrokeshire County Council and Neath Port Talbot all came together and delivered a winning bid. And interestingly, you'll know both ports heavily involved in traditional industries, LNG, oil and steel, and transitioning. And the Celtic Freeport was all based on that energy transition, maximising the opportunities for floating offshore wind, hydrogen and CCUS, as well as moving the traditional industries forward as well. So recently, as you say, I've joined KPMG. I'm now Director of Energy Policy and Regulation, kind of dual role there, work in the Power and Utilities group, but we're also trying to build support for Wales and the South West region.
Thank you, Steve. I'll stay with you for a minute if I can. I'm really keen, you've touched there on geopolitics. I'm really keen to hear from you on your perspective of the key drivers at the moment from a geopolitical perspective, which are affecting energy markets, investment decisions, and also supply chains.
Okay, so the one thing I didn't say in the intro is with the roles in Wales, I was asked to chair CBI Wales Net Zero Group. And as you know, CBI Wales works with industrial leaders across all of Wales, north and south. So just reflecting on your question and bringing it back to Wales. So the first thing that I always go back to, forgetting the vectors before you even start, is net zero is all about stopping global temperatures rise. So this is a global challenge. Then you've got governments and stakeholders and investors that can address those challenges, and they are also global. So Wales is blessed because we have a number of global investors like RWE and many others, and they have choices. And so where there is global inconsistency, I would say, now that is emerging, and when I look back over the last 30 years, I actually think there's been pretty good political consensus on net zero, and everybody knows we've got the global challenge, but I think the key question is the pace, the timing, and then how you achieve it. And I think what's happening right now is both within the British political parties, you can see some divergence, and then you've got the developing world and the developed world, and you just got to look at some of the outcomes from COP30, where now there are differences of opinion. But then bringing all this back then to Wales Tech Week, I think this is where AI tech can provide the answers and solutions that we need, because we all know what we have to achieve, but the key question is the pace and scale. And then what we need here then in Wales is the environment to give Welsh business the opportunities. And with those global industrial partners, Wales is very well blessed with a lot of tier 1, tier 2 contractors and SMEs that can then work with these big partners. So I think then to summarize, I think recently the geopolitical inconsistency, I think, is providing uncertainty both for traditional industries and the transition to net zero. So what we really want, and what we hear through CBI Wales, is more certainty about policy direction, so then people can invest in their vectors.
Thank you, Steve. I think that's a really good place to start from, because this instability is a constant, ironically, at the moment across a lot of what's going on in business, isn't it? So it's really good to frame the discussion through that lens, I think. Bettina, so we've heard there from Steve about the wider position. Let's talk about some Welsh homegrown innovation. Tell us about the technologies and partnerships that are being explored by CCR Energy at the moment.
So yeah, we have a just under 500-acre site for development. So we are getting it prepared for the planning to go in 2 years' time, and then so what will happen after? And I think it's very much driven through the energy transformation, going from fuel energy to the future energy vectors. So we are first of all looking at the different sources of energy for the future. So we have got national grid at the site. So we are hoping to get grid access. We will have to go at the end of the queue, but hopefully that will be accelerated for future opportunities that are coming to the area, like AI, data centers. But we are also looking, another big project is looking at becoming the site for the commercial demonstration tidal lagoon, which is being discussed. Again, that needs the political backing first of all. But yeah, so where do we get the energy from for the industries we want to attract to the site? But if it was a tidal lagoon that was coming to us, then I think it would be really relevant for creating a new supply chain. We could become the site where these novel turbines get developed. So we could be a new supply chain altogether, which then can export this technology to the rest of the UK, but worldwide as well. This is just one of the examples. Then on almost half the site is covered by pulverized fuel ash, which was the waste product from the coal production. So we believe that's a big resource in itself, and we are looking at sustainable uses of that PFA. And one of the projects there is, that's where we've got funding for already, is to create an Earth and Space Hub. It was discovered by an academic from the Open University that the characteristics of that ash is very similar to moon dust. So it's just an example of how innovation could be the could drive that industry to develop at the site. So at the moment we are getting an innovation hub where they want to test robots that could work on the moon or in our dust, but it could then also be further innovation around the PFA that we would bring to the site. But again, those industry could come to the site and develop their own supply chain. So it's huge opportunities.
And we recently recorded a podcast, Bettina, didn't we, which is available now, the Cardiff Capital Region podcast, an episode on space technology. And I have to say, it was just totally fascinating to hear that this waste product, of which I think there are mountains of it at the site.
It's 18 million tons, so it is a mountain.
Yeah, and it's sort of almost now maybe having a dual use, isn't it, where the scientists are looking to see whether actually there is valuable material still within it that wasn't detectable a few years ago, but also, as you say, the experiments mimicking the moon, basically.
Yeah, so the more obvious use for it would be for cement replacement in the cement industry, and so in the construction industry, it would be a net zero material replacing a very high carbon footprint cement process. It could be used for bricks in buildings, so we are going through a process at the moment where we are valorizing that PFA. There are also rare earth elements in there, and again, that really, when you talk about the geopolitics, to be more independent from those international sources of some of those rare earth elements is also crucial, and we have got them here in our mineral waste from the mining, from the coal mining time as well, and the PFA definitely contains it. So there's a lot of innovation. If it could be extracted, that would be really attractive.
Thank you, Bettina. Just fascinating. Steve, I want to pick up with you on two things that Bettina mentioned there. One being circular economy and circular manufacturing, but before that, picking up on the last point, and that is around the geopolitical situation. Bettina mentions how it would be very fortuitous if we actually had a source of rare earth minerals, given what is going on in other parts of the world. I want to extend that out and ask you, to what extent is energy security not just a political imperative, but also an economic imperative? We hear a lot about energy security, but why should we care about it in a business sense?
Well, we should care about it because A, it's such a material cost and is one of the key inputs and key requirements. When we were putting the Celtic Freeport bid together, grid infrastructure, resilience, secure, affordable energy is critical. And so, as I said, you know, investments are global opportunities, and you know, one of the reasons I joined KPMG is the vast range of opportunity that we can provide businesses. But here in Wales, we've had such a rich track record, both in terms of, if you look at coal, you look at energy, what it provided, then the transition to gas. And I think it was right here in Wales, in Cardiff, where the first £1 million cheque was actually signed. And that was linked to coal, an energy vector. And then, when you look at Wales's history, we have a gentleman called William Grove that was actually fundamental to the generation of the hydrogen fuel cell. So, and then our major industries that we've had, the steel, the combined cycle gas turbine power station at Pembrokeshire, the big industrial sites that we have provided a lot of employment and investment and supply chain, then that circular economy. So what we have to do now is we've now got to build the grid and the infrastructure, not for the energy we had in the past, but for the energy that we need in the future. And that then will underpin the economy that we want for the future as well. You cannot separate the two. I think we are quite blessed here in Wales in that, you know, we've got 2 free ports, we've got 2 investment zones, and I think I was reading Business News Wales this morning, the second AI corridor between Cardiff and Bridgend. So there's lots of opportunity there, but it is critical we do get the visibility of cost and we get that grid infrastructure. Some positive steps that are happening. So it's not just net zero is happening and the energy vectors are happening, but there's a lot of change in Great Britain. So we now have a National Energy System Operator, the NESO, that has just been set up. They're now working on 3 strategic plans, a strategic plan, a network plan, and a regional plan for Wales. And it's critical now everybody gets engaged in all of that so that we can design the energy infrastructure that we need to underpin that economy and then build that resilient energy that will then lead to a successful economy.
So you've mentioned grid, you've both mentioned grid there. I know that, you know, grid capacity is one of the major stumbling blocks. Do you feel quite positive, Steve, that that will be resolved, or is that likely to be something that still holds us back?
It's a tough question. It is clearly an issue, and I think my answer to it is we can't let it hold us back. And what we have to do is we have to develop the grid, we have to work with the National Energy System Operator and demand the grid that we actually need to support where we need to go. But also as well, we need to then look at innovation and efficiency and, for example, renewable molecules like biomethane, like hydrogen, like blending, like CCUS. So actually we can maximize what we can do outside of the expanding grid, and it's actually that innovation and those alternatives and efficiency that I think will then allow us to develop. A lot of people think the net zero is about electrification. And yes, we will need a lot more of electrification, but it's not. It's actually about winning the international race for investment with renewable molecules, CCUS, efficiency, and renewable sources of electricity. And I think we have to put all that together because it's power, heat, and transport that underpins the trip to net zero.
Important point. Thank you, Steve. Bettina, Steve's made a really interesting point there, and I'm keen to pick up with you on the opportunity and the importance of working in collaboration and working in clusters rather than in silos to drive this forward. What are the opportunities around that cluster working and collaboration?
Yeah, I think working with our neighbors as an industrial site, our wider neighbors in the region is really, really important. I think it's the reducing the potential cost of the energy infrastructure. That's a huge opportunity where 2 and 2 add up to a lot more than 4 if that's working well. It's also on development of those new supply chains for new energy vectors. We can't do that in isolation on our own. You often need maybe you could benefit from a waste product from a neighboring industry, which is a resource for your own. Like we are based next to a tarmac plant, so their waste heat could power some of the uses at our side, like vertical farming, for example. I think being aware of those opportunities across the region, or if we were the site of a first tidal lagoon, that would most likely the other end would be at Barry Port. So Barry Port, which is run by AB Port, they could be producing the caissons there for the wall structure. So yeah, I think being aware and using those clusters that exist, and I think we are lucky in Wales that we are small enough and well enough connected that like the Net Zero Industry Wales, CCR regions, climate business group, that they are really good existing support networks where industries could really benefit from what others are doing, also that what they have maybe, how they have managed to implement novel AI technologies into their production processes, or we don't all have to invent the wheel. We can do that together as a region.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to build on that. So, I mean, I can see a few people in the audience today. We are very good at collaboration, both between industry, academia, public and private sector. So we've got the 2 free ports, we've got the 2 investment zones, and now the regions are collaborating. I mean, a number of us worked some time ago on something called Flexis, where, industry were actually demanding what we were needing for the future. And the universities then, which we are blessed with in Wales, are very good. We're then looking to innovate early technology solutions and using industry as a sounding board with support from the local and national governments. So we do have a good track record, an opportunity of collaboration. Wales is quite small, as Bettina says, but I do see a high level of collaboration, across academia, industry and government. And I think that is the recipe for success going forward.
And we, at the moment as well, Steve, we are also celebrating the 10th anniversary of CS Connected, the compound semiconductor cluster, which, as you know, is pretty much the same geography as the new AI growth zone, sort of Newport through to Bridgend. Is that a good blueprint for what you would like to see emerge when it comes to the type of technologies you and Bettina are talking about?
I think if you look back, we were blessed. We had coal, so we had a major input, and then Great Britain had a lot of North Sea oil and gas. When you look at what we need now to succeed under the energy transition, I think you mentioned it earlier, Gemma, that the country is not blessed with now the raw materials to actually make. So therefore, we have to focus on the services and new products, research, innovation, AI, and the semiconductors and some of those components to actually really maximize our role in that energy transition, which we can build up and develop here, focus on those right things, and then look actually to export those ideas as well. So you can't focus on everything. If we can get the low cost energy that we actually need, and then we can be a hub for some of the key major components that are then going to be required decade after decade, that's going to be the sustainable economic recovery that we all need.
So focus on our zone of genius.
Correct.
I'm conscious of time, so can I invite any questions from the audience? I think, do we have a microphone? I think we do. Does anybody have a question for our panel? Any questions?
There's a gentleman over there. Can you put your hand up, sir? Put your hand up. Oh, sorry.
Nope. Okay, in which case I will ask a final question before we draw it to a close. And that is, if you had one piece of advice for the tech leaders that will be part of Wales Tech Week this week, in terms of how they can, no matter what sort of sector they are in, how can they play their part over the next 5 years in greening the industrial landscape? What should they focus on? Steve, let's start with you because you've got the mic.
I think one thing we've been particularly bad at, in my experience, is not actually shouting about the things that we're good at and the opportunities that we had. So I know there are some wonderful tech leaders here this week, and I know there are plenty of opportunities. So in the very short term, my first protocol would be, let's make sure these things are visible to everybody, and then obviously what we need to be doing then is collaborating and working together. So I said right at the start, we've got a wonderful track record. Energy has played a pivotal role in the Welsh economy, and I think now when you couple tech, AI and these tech leaders, and if we can collaborate and make these things visible, and we've got plenty of drive now and opportunity, and we can get this circular economy going for the future.
Thank you, Steve. Bettina, your advice for tech leaders for the next 5 years?
Yes, I agree with everything you've said. Maybe the one thing people or leaders could set out maybe every morning, think about is just to embrace innovation and embrace the change and take up the opportunities that are out there at the moment on all sectors, on the energy sector, on the technology sector, on the investment, the funding opportunities that are out there, to speak to people you can meet here at CCR, across the region, who can work together with industries to get access to some of that funding and develop these novel concepts within your organizations.
Thank you both. Well, thank you for those words of advice at the end. So that draws this panel to a close. It was a nice short one to kick things off, but hopefully you've had plenty of insights there. I've learned a lot, and thank you so much to both Steve and to Bettina. Thank you.
Welcome.